everyone. This is where I make sure that OBS, every single time when I have to add my camera back, it's like, oh, this is a microphone too. I'm gonna make it be a microphone. And I'm like, no, what if you didn't? Please don't. Please just chill. Please just accept that the camera is plugged in and accept the input. But OBS is free. And I'm not a technical adept. I know enough about computers to know that I know nothing about computers. And so when using Windows, and now every time I try to log into anything, I have to input my Microsoft, my Windows password. I don't know how to make that stop. I have too many things to do to actually remember to go and search for it, because almost every time I'm prompted for the password and I get annoyed about it, it's because I'm trying to do something. And so then I go and do that thing instead of stopping and be like, let's spend 15 minutes figuring this out. C'est la vie. How's it going? I'm pretty sure that my audio is working because I see the audio doing the thing. So I think that's good. You should be able to see the Shadow of the Weird Wizard quick play document here. We are looking at this game from Schwalb Entertainment. It is currently on Kickstarter. It has less than 24 hours to go. It has made $373,223 from 3,809 backers. So still chugging along. This is like a modification or an iteration on Shadow of the Demon Lord, which is a game that I have heard recommended a number of times. I picked up the core, I think I got a story bundle or a humble bundle a few years back and looked at the main book, and it seemed like there was some interesting stuff going on, but it's extremely grimdark. Like, everyone is doomed, kill, fuck, soul shitter was the vibe that I got from it. I don't know that that's an accurate read. It's just the vibe that I got from the book. And that type of grimdark is just not my deal. But you might ask, Mike, aren't you playing in a Dungeons of Drakkenheim game? I mean, that's accurate, but the GM does a pretty good job of making stuff be intense and foregrounding the dark fantasy without going all the way to what I view as the nihilistic edgelord extent of dark fantasy / grimdark, where it's like everyone is terrible, morality basically doesn't exist, and actually everyone is bad. That's not my thing. It's not for me. So Shadow of the Weird Wizard has been positioned as a more family-friendly kind version of some of the same rules, or, as I might frame it, a more traditional fantasy tonal range using the same mechanical systems which have earned Shadow of the Demon Lord a lot of accolades. So that's encouraging. On the first day of the Kickstarter, I downloaded this quick play and I read about 3 pages, and I said to myself, why is this all character sheets with stats I don't understand? So we're going to look at what this text says for the quick play, which sort of explains it. I don't know that I think that this arrangement of this presentation is optimal for my purposes, but that's okay. This quick play offers you a glimpse of the Shadow of the Weird Wizard, my newest fantasy role-playing to make use of the rules first introduced in Shadow of the Demon Lord. The 2 games share some things in common, but Weird Wizard eschews the foulness and horror of the original, enables you to play heroes charged with protecting peoples fleeing the violence and upheaval of their homelands as they search for new homes in the Borderlands. Facing the monsters and magical mayhem created by the strange magician, characters have their work cut out for them. This booklet is not a complete game. Understood. It gives you just enough to play through a quest. You'll find some pre-generated characters first, followed by an abbreviated set of rules, and the quest at the end. All this to give you a taste of what my game offers: broad customization, short campaigns, focused quests, and streamlined rules designed for maximum accessibility. Okay, that's a pretty good mission statement. This is what this game is about. This is what I am trying to do. And the I here, I'm presuming, is writing, design, and art direction lead Robert J. Schwalb. We also have editing and development by Kim Mohan, additional editing by Jay Spite, art direction, graphic design, and layout by Cara Hamilton, aid and assistance by Daniel K. Heinrich, proofreading by Jay Spite. So that is that. So that explains why we have character sheets at the front here. Because defense is probably like AC. We have 4 stats instead of 6. How much does health compare to hit points? How does speed compare to things like this? Because this game is very much framed as a thing to play if you want something that's sort of like, but not, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. As many fantasy adventure games are, because Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has such a gigantic cultural and economic footprint, understandably. So yeah, clarity would be fantastic. A day of reading EULA updates, that would, I think, do a lot to make one really, really interested in clarity and perhaps brevity. How's it going, Arudno? Good to see you. So we have some characters. Crunk, who is a Woodwoes person. Z, who is a priest. Aim, who is a dragonette. And there's some spells. Soldier V, Whisper. Okay, these have some flavor, but I'm just going to go down to how to play, because this is more the way that I tend to learn role-playing games. If I have the rulebook, but I don't have ready access to actual play, or I don't feel like finding an actual play that I'll be able to stick with enough to learn the rules from how people play it, I just go straight to the core rules section. What is the base and or fundamental mechanic of this thing? So we have attribute roles. We have an attribute modifier, and we have a target number. Normally the number is 10 if no one resists the effort that warranted making the roll. If you roll against a creature or object, the target number is the score of the attribute you are rolling against, or the score of the target's defense. 150 pages to say, quote, if it's broke, we'll fix it if you raise enough of a stink to land us in court. If you can't fight $1 trillion company in court, you have no rights. That sounds like EULAs from big companies, yes. I wish you the best of luck in doing battle against ridiculousness in this regard. Okay, so in the game, if you perform an activity resisted by multiple enemies, such as when you attack more than one target at a time, you make 1 attribute roll per target. In other words, if you attack 2 targets, make 2 attribute rolls, one for each target. Okay, so here, attribute rolls are listed as the core. We don't have this weird thing that sometimes you get in games where it's like, here's the core roll, and then there's a subsection of the roll, but it's unclear when it's the subversion or not. So far, this seems clear. You determine the output by comparing the following steps. Roll d20, add the modifier for your attribute, and then compare the result to the target number. You get a success if the result equals or exceeds the target number, or a failure if it doesn't. So we have a binary result state, success or failure. Something that I like about Pathfinder 2nd Edition is that it has a fairly streamlined way of identifying whether you have a critical success, a critical failure, a success, or a failure. If you succeed by more than 10, that's probably going to be a critical success. If you fail by more than 10, it's probably going to be a critical failure. But then they still have the 20 and 1 on the die do something. They just move the result level up or down 1 based... so if you get a nat 20 and you have a plus 10 modifier and the DC was 30, normally your total would only be a success, but because you got a nat 20, it becomes a critical success. Or if you got a nat 20, but you only had a plus 2 modifier and the DC was 25, that would be a failure, but because it was a 20, it improves by 1 step and becomes a success. Similarly, a nat 1 reduces your result level by 1, where if you have a nat 1, but you have a plus 12 to the roll and the DC was 12, that would be a normal success. And the 1 means that it becomes a normal failure. If the DC were 15, that 13, instead of a normal failure, would become a critical failure. And so I liked having that 4-step result system. I'm curious whether we will get a critical system in this as well, and how it compares to some of the other critical systems in kind of these D20 base games. Rolls to attack, rolls against. Whenever the rules mention a roll to attack, refers to the attribute roll you're attacking. Roll against, you're rolling against defense or attribute score. Boons and banes. So this is when you have a boon, you add a d6 to your result, and when you have a bane, you subtract d6 to your result, and they cancel each other out. This is not dissimilar to what we've seen elsewhere, but I think Demon Lord, if this is the system that it comes from, may actually be the one exerting influence on a lot of these other games, because it's my understanding that Schwalb was involved in the design of previous editions of D&D 5e, and then went on to make Shadow of the Demon Lord, and that Shadow of the Demon Lord has probably now influenced a number of designers across the last decade. Because the first version of Shadow of the Demon Lord came out... Let's find out. Shadow of the Demon Lord RPG 2015. So, 5th edition came out in 2014. Demon Lord came out in 2015. So, Demon Lord has been around for almost as long as the release version of D&D 5th edition. So, we've got our boons and banes. We got success and failure. If you hit on an attack, you do damage. If you fail, you might take damage, gain an affliction, or find that action attempted is, at least for now, beyond your capabilities. I'm curious whether this means that the DM doesn't roll, and that if I attack and I get a failure instead of a null fiction result, I get the enemy attacking. I think there's a number of kind of major D&D designers of this century. I don't think I know enough about the recent history of D&D in the 21st century to say, okay, this person is like a Gygax, and this person is like an Arneson, and this person is like something else. But it could be. Luck rolls. A luck roll uses no attribute. It's just fate. Luck ends. If you are under an effect that has the luck ends condition, you make a roll at the end of the round. And if you get a 10+, it ends. You can end a luck ends effect with the successful use of overcome. I don't know if overcome is a skill or if it's an action. Luck ends 10 means that you always have a 55% chance of success, right? Because a 10 is the low average die result on a d20, because we have a range from 1 to 20. 1 to 10 is the first 50%, 11 to 20 is the second. So if a difficulty of 10, you actually have a 55% chance if you're rolling one die on that linear curve. Defense. You have a defense score. Defense ranges from 0 to 25. Yeah, I think looking at Gygax for fiction, or Gygax for rules versus Greenwood for story and setting, is very understandable here. I think, I don't know enough about the original history of D&D to be able to make a full comparison, because I actually know, I think, more about the creative development process of D&D's 3rd edition through now than I do the very earliest versions. So I guess I'll just leave that there. Other people have investigated that history. I just don't know it well enough to try to repeat it. So we have health. You had a chainmail box set, yeah. I did get the, there's like a 30-year anniversary book for D&D that I think Vin Diesel wrote the foreword to. I had that, but that was a long time ago now. You can gain and lose health. Damage. You are injured if your damage total equals or exceeds half your health score. Typically, you suffer no effects from being injured, but certain things... Okay, so that's like the bloodied condition in 4th edition. You've taken 50% or more of your health. Incapacitated is when your damage total equals your health score. When you're incapacitated, you're unconscious. If you're incapacitated at the end of a round, you lose 1d6 health on make a luck roll. On a success, you heal 1 damage and you are no longer incapacitated. Death. If you die, but how do you die? So this is incapacitated, and then it tells us about death, but not how you die. When your health score reaches 0, you die. Wait, how does my health score go down? Okay, you lose 1d6 health, not take 1d6 additional damage. So if your health was 14 and you're down, at the end of the round you lose health points. So you're dying through the d6 rolls. Okay. Afflictions, this is like status effects. We have blinded, confused, controlled, cursed, deafened, frightened, held, impaired, on fire, poisoned, prone, stunned, unconscious. So I understand why so many of these games include stunned and other like incapacitated conditions, but it feels bad to not get to play the game. Right? My character is stunned. Okay, Mike, it's your turn. Your character is stunned. Okay, Joe, it's your turn. Like, am I playing the game? No, I'm the audience right now. There are some times when a character being briefly out of the action makes sense. There are like fictional precedents for things like this, for sure, across a variety of media. But it feels bad, especially when you're in a combat that takes 2 hours and it's 25 minutes between when you get a turn, especially if you're stunned or out of the action for multiple turns, right? It's 2:30. We start playing. We start doing a combat. At 2:45, without having gone, I get stunned. It's my turn at 2:50. I don't get to do anything. We go another 25 minutes, get to 3:15, and I'm still stunned. And then we get to 3:40, and I finally get to act. It's been an hour, and I haven't got to do anything. Often your combat rounds will go faster than that, and often you won't be stunned or basically you won't be crowd controlled out of the fight for more than one round at a time, but sometimes you are. Some GMs that I've seen or heard, when a character is like crowd controlled, they will still have a character beat for that person in that moment, whether it's like, oh, you know, you've been stunned and so you're in a battle inside your mind against the person who's trying to stun you or possess you or mind control you or something. But a lot of the times it's just like, okay, you don't get a turn. I don't like them. I understand why they exist fictionally. And really, the greater problem may in fact be that we have a system where combat takes so long. So whether that is a problem with tactical combat systems or whether that is a problem with the way that status effects are applied in these games, that I leave to Reddit. My personal opinion is I generally don't think that I like them. And which is funny because I play a monk in a 5e game, and the monk's signature ability in combat is Stunning Strike. Some people might say it's Flurry of Blows. It's Stunning Strike because the stun condition is so powerful. Because when you land the stun condition on an enemy, they are both incapacitated and stunned. And these are two different status effects. The stunned condition includes the incapacitated condition. And so it gives the target a whole long list of things they don't get to do and additional penalties that they suffer. I have used Stunning Strike on major, like, monsters, on bosses. And if the boss in a 5e game doesn't have legendary resistances and you land a stunning strike on them, they are just a punching bag until the end of that monk's next turn. Something I've seen in recent games, in recent supplements, is people using, I think MCDM has the dazed condition that they put into Flea Mortals. And the dazed condition is effectively the result of the 5e spell Mind Whip, or Tasha's Mind Whip, where you only get one of movement, action, and bonus action. You don't get the other ones. So if you have been dazed, you can go, okay, well, I'm going to use my action to do the attack action, but I don't get to do a bonus action, and I don't get to move. Or, well, I really just want to get out of here, so I'm going to use my move action, but I don't get to do anything else. So on your turn, you are still doing something, but you are still massively impaired, especially if you're playing like a more optimized 5e kind of character, where you have something to do with your bonus action every turn. So you're basically doing two things and moving every turn. So in this game, stunned, you cannot use actions or reactions. Your speed goes to 0. You get two boons on all rolls against you, and you make attribute rolls with 2 banes. Prone is fine. Impaired. So impaired means you get 1 bane when trying to do something. Understandable. When you have this line of sight to something you fear, you make attribute rolls with 1 bane, and you grant 1 boon on attribute rolls against you. Sure, that's fine. Frightened, you can still do things, but it's worse. Blinded. Have your speed. You must guess that this is a little vague in a system that otherwise seems like it's trying to go for close to 5e levels of specificity clarity. Right, because if I'm, I guess, hopefully we're going to have a roll that is like, here's the thing you do to identify the location of an enemy with your senses as a thing that you can do. On fire! You are on fire! Take damage, extinguish yourself, poisoned, banes and boons. Banes and boons, I think it's a solid way of making these kinds of adjustments. Advantage. Some statistical analysis / people who say that they have done statistical analyses say that advantage is worth effectively a +5 on your roll. Other people say that it's effectively only a +2, because the argument for the +2 is if you is basically the statistical analysis of if you're rolling 2 dice, what is the average that you're going to end up with. I don't know what the +5 comes from. Maybe the +5 is incorporating the fact that the d20 is so swingy, and that by having a bell curve and reverting your roll to the mean, it creates this instead equivalency. The extent of my statistic knowledge is playing role-playing games and studying them. Hello, the kids are asleep. Swingy is a fun term. I find it also a very useful term. Like, D&D 5e is especially swingy. Especially at low levels, because XYZ, the range result in using a d20 is a linear results curve. It's a 5% chance of rolling a 3, a 5% chance of rolling an 18, and when your bonus at a level 1 might only be +3 or +4, the way I would describe it is the die is more powerful than you. The dice has a much bigger say in whether you succeeded than your own capabilities as a character do. At higher levels, this becomes less true, as you can stack on some more bonuses and things like that. So, rest. We're only on page 8, well, but I think we'll get there. Characters can rest. Resting allows you to heal damage. If you have uninterrupted rest for 8 consecutive hours, you heal all damage and you regain health equal to 1/10 your normal health score. So if you had a 10 health score and you rested for 8 hours, you would regain 1 health. That's not a lot. Some of your other resources might also be replenished after rest, like magic or maybe something. Time rounds. Rounds are 3 to 6 seconds. Size and reach. Size 1 characters are the equivalent of adult human being. So, okay, we have size 2 is twice as big as a typical person. Size 3 is something 3 times as tall and wide as a human, while size 1/2 is something that half as tall and wide as an average adult human being. Senses. If you want more information, do you need to explore? Sound and hearing. Okay. These are luck rolls. Sounds have 4 intensities: soft, normal, loud, and louder. Okay, this is giving you the range at which you can hear these things. It appears that there is not a skill related to sound and hearing because this is it's listed as a luck roll. Light and vision gives you the range of vision: artificial light, obscurement, darkness, wind. Okay, we're getting a lot of like how to simulate this world details. They put numbers on. Here's how far you can. How far away you can hear X thing. Like it's trying to give us specificity and quantification of things that are ostensibly how things work in our world, so that we can understand the way that they are framed in the world of Weird Wizard. Special senses. So you can have special senses. True vision, even though if they're invisible. You can search for hidden creatures or objects. You must be specific about where you look. A door disguised to look like a section of wall might require extensive searching of the area and a successful intellect roll. So you can't just say, I look around for hidden things. It seems like you would need to say, all right, I'm going to look up and down the walls to try to identify places where the coloration is off or seams that I wouldn't expect and things like that. And then you might go, okay, now you can make me an intellect roll. And then the GM might give you information based on the way that you framed it. People know things. You know the following things. So this is just like baseline understanding so that people don't have to be like, well, what I know X. You would know that magic exists, that gods sometimes walk the lands and bestow powers on their servants. You know how to, like, an average character knows how to read and write. This is framed as a pre-industrial society. You might have professional knowledge about stories and legends, tasks and activities, competence. You count as being competent in any work you perform related to your profession. Swingy makes me think of my grandfather. Yep. Don't mean a thing if it ain't got that linear curve. Because then it's not swingy. Discoveries. You can know something, not know something, or think you know something. If you think you might know something, ask the sage to make an intellect roll. Okay, so this is like recall knowledge in Pathfinder 2nd edition. If you're confronted with information you don't know much about, often this is because gaining the information represents a significant advancement of the plot. Rather than pester the sage for questions, look for ways in the story that your character can find the information, such as by searching through. Okay, the way that this quick play document is written is very interesting. It doesn't feel like it has the same type of voice or kind of framing as what I would expect from like a D&D 5e book. Understandable, these are not the same games, they're trying to do different things. You know, your character will know things. And I don't know if this is meant to be specific to the quick play where they're trying to cast a really wide net, potentially including people that are not already familiar with tabletop role-playing games, or if this is just the way that these books are written. Disposition. So they can be friendly, indifferent, unfriendly. Reading dispositions. You might make will rolls to see if you can keep your true feelings to yourself. Changing dispositions. So you can have social interactions that change dispositions. Here are some common languages. Common, Sylvan, Arcane. Okay. Combat. Battlefield. The sage describes the battlefield before the combat begins. For some battles, the imagination suffices, but sometimes you might want to sketch it out. Sure. Combatants. Any combatant fighting on your side, actively fighting on your side, counts as an ally. If an effect causes someone to treat you as an ally, that character will fight on your behalf for as long as the effect lasts. Each round, all the combatants under the sage's control take their turns first, acting in any order the sage chooses. So this sounds like side initiative, where the NPCs always go first. That instantly tells me a few things. It tells me that you're never going to get to one-shot enemies before they get to act unless you surprise them, right? You come up, you walk around the corner of the path through the woods, and you see that there are 3 brigands on the path waiting to ambush you. Even if you aren't surprised because you heard them ahead of time, when you confront them, unless you manage to surprise them, they are going to get to attack you first. All the combatants under the sage's control take their turns first. But that would also be if you have 3 player characters and you're traveling with a helper. If the sage is the one that controls that helper, the brigands are going to get to attack, and then the helper is going to get to attack. And then, once all combatants under the sage's control have taken their turns, the players take their turns. Players can take their turns in any order they want, so all the players decide amongst themselves who's going in what order. On each of its turns, there is the better turn. On each of their turns, a combatant can move and use an action before, after, or during their move. Some effects begin at the end of a turn, sure. Each combatant can act out of turn just once by using a reaction. So we also have reactions here compared to something like 5e. The round ends when all combatants have taken a turn. Yes, that's fine. Ambushes. An ambush occurs when one side takes the other by surprise. Sage determines when an ambush is possible. If an ambush happens, the ambushed skip their first turns, right? So that's the way of getting around the fact that NPCs always go first in this, right? NPCs always go first, they're ambushed, then they skip their first turn. If the PCs are ambushed, then the enemies get to go twice before the players get to go, is what this seems like this is telling us. Okay. Movement. You can move a number of yards equal to your speed score using your primary mode of locomotion. Walking, rolling, slithering, or fluttering. Sure. You can spend yards of movement to move in special ways, like climbing and swimming and things like that. So you can climb, you can crawl, drop prone, fly, jump and leap. Mount and dismount, retreat, sneak, stand up, swim. Okay. Sure. Obstacles. Challenging terrain. Takes more movement. Falling damage, squeezing. Movement activities, you can do some minor things like open a door, pick something off the ground, some kind of like object interaction type thing. The sage determines if an attribute roll is required when you're trying to do something. Some creatures have special movement traits that will let them interact with movement in a different way. Movement complications. Somebody might move you. If you move out of the reach of one of your enemies, you trigger a free attack from each enemy whose reach you leave. I still don't like the way that 5e does attacks of opportunity. This is a pet peeve of mine, because all of my martial arts experience, especially in melee situations, in fencing, tell me that when someone enters your reach, you also tend to attack them. And that, in fact, stepping into someone's reach is a great way to get hit. If I have a halberd or some other long weapon, and an enemy steps within the reach of that thing and they can't hit me, I'm absolutely going to hit them. This is like the whole thing with pikes. And the fact that like pole arms are incredibly popular across human history. Because if you have a sword that's 4 foot long and I have a spear that's 9 foot long, I hit you first. But these games, post 3rd edition, I don't remember what 4th edition does for D&D. There's no, like, we have this attack of opportunity type thing for when you leave, but we don't have one for when you enter? Is this just because the designers didn't want the player characters to get stabbed when they run up on an enemy? Like, what are we doing here? In Pathfinder 2nd edition, the attack of opportunity feature is rare. It's not rare in the Pathfinder terms, because that they have a whole like, oh, being of this species, this ancestry is rare, and so check with your GM, blah, blah, blah. By rare, what I mean is that monsters don't automatically get the attack of opportunity feature. Player characters don't automatically get that feature either. The fighter gets that feature very early on, I think maybe even 1st level, and that's part of what makes the fighter special, is that they're able to react to enemies moving and attacking them. But even Pathfinder still does not do that thing where if somebody enters your reach, you attack them, even when your reach is superior to theirs. And that just annoys me. So my martial artist hat is now temporarily off, and I'm going to move on. You can jump or climb onto creatures, which is very funny. Grappling, things like that. So things you can do as actions: attack, cast a spell, defend. So when you defend, until the end of your next turn, the first time any creature succeeds on a roll to attack you, make a luck roll. On a success, you turn the enemy's success into a failure. That says the first time any creature succeeds on a roll. That would tell me that the defend action only gives you that luck roll protection one time between now and the end of your next turn, right? So if I'm fighting skeletons and I take the defend action, one skeleton attacks me and misses. One skeleton attacks me and hits. Because I defend, I make a luck roll. I succeed and the attack turns into a failure. The 3rd skeleton attacks me and hits. Nothing. I get nothing. My defend worked for 1 attack. That is my understanding based on the language here. The first time any creature, if it were the first time every creature, or every time a creature succeeds on a roll to attack you, that would be against all rolls. Or the first time each creature succeeds on a roll to attack you, make a luck roll. That would let you get 1 defend against every assailant. This sounds like it is 1 defend luck roll period for the action. You can consciously end a magic thing that you're doing. You can try to search an area within 5 yards of you for a hidden creature, object, or some other feature. The sage might determine you need to get a success on an intellect roll. You can help one creature within 5 yards. That gives them 1 boon on the next thing that they try to do. You can try to hide with agility. You can interfere with someone using hinder to give them a bane on the next attribute roll before the start of their next turn, or the start of your next turn. And overcome is the thing that you can do to try to like deal with a status effect, right? You can run to triple your speed. You can try to stabilize a creature. They heal 1d6 damage, not 1d6 health, 1d6 damage. Right? Because health is the thing that you die when you run out of. Let's double check here, right? I have to go all the way up here. Unconscious. when damage equals your health score, right? You remove damage when you are doing this action to try to heal somebody. You don't get them back health. Okay. Steal. You could try to steal something. Okay, so we've got this as a primary action that's available here. This is agility versus agility. If you're hidden, you get a boon. So with the steal action, you could just like disarm an enemy, right? Oh, but is not carried in their hands. So you're stealing off of their belt or backpack. Got it. Okay, you can throw a thing. Thrown attacks. You can toss something to somebody who, well, to somebody. You can use a talent or trait. You can use an item. Do something else. Some tasks require more time. When you decide to do something that requires more time and effort than can be accomplished on your turn, the rules will tell you how long it takes. When you're spending this extra time, you focus entirely on the task at hand and you cannot use an action or reaction to do anything else. You can react to catch, cover an ally. You can, when an enemy attacks a target within your reach, you can use reaction to switch the enemy's target from the one the enemy chose to yourself. You can catch something that's being thrown at you. When a creature attacks you attacks you, or you make an agility roll to avoid an attack, you can use a reaction to either impose one bane or make your roll with one boon. So you can both defend as your action and dodge as a reaction, it looks like. I really like that cover ally is a baseline reaction, because that tells me that this may be a game where if I'm playing like a defendery type character, I'm going to have more chances to protect my allies. Because somebody attacks my rogue or somebody attacks like a wizard person who's not very tough, and I can say I'm going to cover ally and jump in and have them attack me instead of my ally. Get a free attack. This is the attack of opportunity type thing. Take the initiative. If you're aware of your enemies when a new round starts, you can use a reaction to take the initiative, which lets you take a turn immediately before your enemies take their turns. If you and other allies take the initiative, you decide amongst yourselves who goes first as normal. Okay, so can I take the initiative the first round of a fight when I'm aware of my enemies? If that's the case, why would I ever not, right? If you get your reaction back on your turn, why wouldn't you take the initiative at the start of every fight? Now, maybe that's not how it works. You can use a reaction once each round to perform one of the following. So maybe that's why. If the reaction is per round, not per your round, then that might be why you wouldn't always try to take the initiative. Right? Because it's cool, we're starting round 2. Now you have a reaction that you can use anytime in round 2. And I say, I take the initiative. Okay, cool. Yeah, you're going to go first. And then an enemy attacks you, and now you can't use dodge. So maybe that's the reason. So if you give up the opportunity to do some of these reactions, which this game has notably more you can do it with a reaction as a baseline compared to something like a 5e or even something like Pathfinder, right? Because of cover ally, dodge, free attack, take the initiative, and withstand. Withstand, when you make a strength roll to avoid an effect or mitigate a harmful effect, you can use a reaction to either impose one bane on the roll or make your roll with one boon. So you can have a dodge, which is about agility, and you can withstand, which is about strength. And those are reactions that anybody can take. You don't need to have special training or class type things to be able to do that. So when you attack with a thing. Very, very basic language here. Natural weapon is like use your body. Improvised weapon, resolving attacks. Choose a target. Make an attribute roll. Strength for melee weapons. Agility for ranged weapons. If you succeed, roll your damage. Critical successes. When the result of your roll to attack is 20 or higher, and exceeds the target number by at least 5, your attack deals an extra 1d6 damage. Okay, that's several things to think about, right? So if you get over 20 as your total, and you exceed your target number by at least 5, then you do 1d6 extra damage. I think I get a sense of what they're trying to go for, right? Because if the enemy has a high defense and you get over 20, you don't get it automatically, right? They have a defense of 19, you get a 22. That's not a critical success. But it also means that the number on the die doesn't seem to matter, right? A 20 on the die isn't automatically a critical success. But also a 1 on the die is not automatically a critical failure, it seems like, right? Critical success, this is on a roll to attack, so there may not be criticals on skills. Or other types of attribute rolls, because attacking is an attribute roll. Attribute, do I attribute things and then I have attributes? I think that may actually be the case. I make an attribute roll. Attribute is the noun, attribute is the verb form, right? Yeah, I think that makes sense. I have a sponsor. I sponsor someone. Okay. Surrounded target. When you make a melee attack against a target that has been attacked by an ally using a melee weapon in the same round, you roll with 1 boon. Having to keep track of that is going to be a little tricky, right? Now I can look at the enemy and go, well, I know that Susan is next to this enemy as well, but what if there's 3 enemies around Susan and I don't remember which one Susan attacked? Maybe we need to use some tokens here. When you make a ranged attack against a target beyond your weapon's range, but no more than twice the range, you roll with 1 bane. When you attack from higher, you roll with a boon. If you make a ranged attack within the range of at least 1 enemy, you roll with a bane. Roll to attack with bane if they're obscured. If you can't see them, you roll with 3 banes. Cover can give banes. So having this bane boon system allows for a lot of modifiers that are not huge but are important. And I like that. Bonus damage. If you choose a path that grants bonus damage, what is that? What does a path mean? A path that grants bonus damage. For example, a warrior's level 3 and has plus 2d6 bonus damage. Ups to roll. Okay. Simply roll the dice from the bonus damage and... What do you mean choose a path that grants bonus damage? That language is very weird to me. So if you attack with 2 weapons, you can attack with both weapons at the same time. Only the properties from the weapon you wield in your main hand apply. Yeah, like is path... my path to doing bonus damage is that my sword gives me bonus damage. That's probably what they mean. Just the wording is weird to me. Only the properties from the main weapon in your main hand apply. If the attack results in a success, add the damage from the weapon you wield in your offhand as extra damage to the attack. Attack with both weapons at the same time. So this means if you can wield more than 2 weapons at a time. So attacking with 2 weapons is always attacking 1 enemy with both weapons. And you just get bonus damage. I don't like that either. Because as somebody who has been trained in 2-weapon fighting, you can attack multiple enemies. You can make your attack more likely to succeed by fouling your enemy's blade with one weapon and hitting them with another weapon. But there's a certain level of abstraction that designers are just going to choose. You make a called shot. You roll with 1 bane. If you succeed and you target at a spot on the enemy's body, the target becomes impaired in an attribute of your choice until the end of the next turn. If you target something that the target wears or carries, the object takes the damage instead. So you could try to destroy somebody's shield by making a called shot. You could try to impair someone's agility by taking an attack at their legs. You might impair their intellect by cracking them upside the head and dazing them. Okay. Charge. You can use an action to charge one creature or object, double your speed. If you move toward the target and can reach it before the end of your turn, you can attack it with a weapon or an unarmed attack, but you roll with 1 Bane. So that lets you move farther, but then you suffer a penalty when you attack. Interesting. In a lot of games, a charge attack gives a bonus rather than a penalty. Disarm. Okay, so that's so disarm is different from called shot. So if called shot destroy your shield versus called shot disarm you of your shield. Of your size or smaller, so you cannot disarm a creature that is bigger than you. Why not just say that you have more Banes if they're bigger than you? Right? If I'm fighting, a troll that is twice as big as me, it's impossible for me to disarm them. Impossible. I'm a size 1 human with a great maul, and they are a size 2 troll with a troll scale short sword, and it is impossible for me to disarm them. Why? Maybe that's supposed to be a special technique that some characters can get. Your size or smaller, yeah. You roll with 1 Bane if you use a melee weapon, 2 Banes if you used an improvised weapons, 3 Banes if you use a ranged weapon. I bet there's special abilities that will let you try to disarm with fewer Banes. On a success, they take no damage. Bonus damage does not apply, but makes an agility roll and drops 1 object on a failure. So what is the target of that agility roll? Is that target of the agility roll based on your attack? Or is it based on their own agility score? I don't quite follow. It would stand to reason that the target that they should try to hit is your attack total, right? If I on a success, right? So I'm trying to hit them, and then they get an agility roll. So I take a penalty to try to do it, and then they have to fail the agility roll for a disarm to work. So that makes disarming quite unlikely, as I understand it. If you make an unarmed attack, you automatically take a Bane against the target's defense. This doesn't say if the target is armed. So unarmed strikes are always harder to hit with than weapons. Why? Why are unarmed attacks always harder to hit with than weapons? Shove, you can try to shove somebody, sure. Choose 1 creature whose size is no more than 2 higher than yours. You make a strength against their strength. You roll with 1 boon if you're using a shield, and 1 boon if you move at least 5 yards. On a success, you push them a number of yards equal to your strength modifier, minimum 1 yard away. If the target is larger than you, it moves half the distance. If the result of your roll is 20 or higher, the target falls prone. So if I roll higher than a 20 and the enemy rolls also higher than a 20, they are still automatically prone? I don't know that that's their intent. Again, this is a quick play document, so some of this I may be misunderstanding what they mean, or their language may not be finalized. You can try to knock somebody to the ground. You do this agility against the target's choice of agility or strength. If you're using a shield, you roll with 1 boon. I don't know that I think tripping someone with a shield is more effective than tripping somebody with certain weapons, but maybe those weapons will have specific properties about tripping. If the result of your roll is 20 or higher, the speed drops till 0 until the start of your next turn, but they are not knocked prone. So you can trip someone and it will just reduce their speed, I guess because they're like destabilized. Grappling. You cannot grapple a creature whose size is more than 1 higher than yours. We do have, however, have separate rules about jumping on a creature. So I guess we use those rules instead. Drag, you can try to drag a creature. You can try to wrestle someone that you have grabbed. You can knock them prone, but they're not grabbing. Or you and the target fall prone. You're still grabbing them. The target takes 1d6 damage. If you and the target are both prone, you pin the target, right? So this is more like 3rd edition wrestling rules / grappling rules. Grapple, prone, pin. Casting spells. You target. I think we're getting pretty close to the quest. I guess we're gonna have to go back to the characters and then see if we can understand the rules that those characters are written with. At this point, having read the rules section. Casting spells. You can cast any spell, provided you can speak aloud the mystical words. Once you cast a spell, you regain the ability to cast the spell after you rest. So these spells are all one and done, Vancian, fire and forget magic. Some spells will enable you to cast them more often. I would say that, just an editing note, I would put this sentence after this other sentence, right? Once you cast a spell, you gain the ability to cast the spell after you rest. Some spells enable you to cast them more often. Anyway. Targeting. You must be able to see and draw a line between you and them. Spell effects tend to not move around corners unless they say otherwise. Some spells affect creature and object within range. A spell might specify allies or enemies. A spell targets a space or causes something to happen inside a space. Sure. Durations, rolls, cover, rituals. Rituals always take 10 minutes. And then we have a quest here. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning of the document. I'm going to scroll a bunch. So shield or avert your eyes if a bunch of scrolling all at once is going to be unsettling. Okay, here we go. So we're going back up here. Let's see how we understand this now. So we have defense, so we know that that's the target that enemies have to hit us. So Krunk is easier to hit, it seems like. Zia has a defense of 17. Wow, that's such a huge difference, right? But you have 22 health, which is a lot. Z has 14 health. You are a recluse who is a fighter. A people with a history steeped in blood and violence who, in an attempt to make amends for their part of the killing of fairies, retreated to the woods to tend and nurture nature. My eyebrows are raised. A history steeped in blood and violence. Yeah, but the Woodwoes who's alive now probably wasn't involved in that. Thick, coarse, reddish-brown fur covers your body. You have a pair of curling ram horns. Okay. So languages, you know some languages. Your strength, 13 is +3, 9 is -1, 11 is +1. It looks like the rating, your bonus is your rating plus, like how much your score is plus or minus 10. So that is a narrower range than in 5e or in 3e, right? A strength of 13 is +3, not +1. I think that system makes a lot of sense. It's a little bit easier to parse for a lot of people, I would also guess. Size 1, speed 5. So you're only still size 1. 8 feet tall, 400 pounds, but that's size 1. So they're not size 1.5. You can be size 1/2, but you can't be size 1.5? Question mark? But we do have something called hulking here, so let's see. You make strength rolls with 1 boon and impose 1 bane on rolls made against your strength. You make agility rolls with 1 bane and grant 1 boon on rolls made against your agility. So that's on top of having an agility of 9 for a -1. Great Hammer. You can use an action to attack one creature or object within 3 yards. Okay, so that's a fair amount of reach, 3 yards. Make a strength roll with 1 boon against the target's defense. 1 boon, I'm guessing, because of the hammer, or maybe because of your reach. 3d6 damage. Interesting that this is written out in like sentence form instead of Great Hammer, strength +3 with 1 boon, range 3 yards, damage 3d6, 4d6 against an object. Maybe that's just a style thing. Critical success. When you get a critical success, you can roll the extra damage twice and use the highest amount. So is a critical success only for damage? At least in this document, it seems like. If the creature is size 2 or smaller, it also makes a strength roll. On a failure, you can push the target 1d6 yards or knock it prone. I'm guessing because this is a Great Hammer. Is this a critical effect of the Great Hammer, or is this because Crunk is a Wood Woes and or big person and or fighter? Engage the enemy. When an enemy moves to a space within a number of yards equal to your speed, you can use a reaction to move up to your speed. If you can reach the enemy, you can attack it, and if the enemy takes damage from the attack, the speed drops to 0 until the end of its next turn. I'm guessing this is a fighter ability, and that is a great reaction. Right? An enemy is approaching your group. Once they get within a number of yards equal to your speed, which is 5. So once somebody gets within 15 feet, Crunk can intercept them and attack them. But we know that there are a lot of things you can do with your reaction in this game just as a baseline. So you have to be a little bit more picky about when you're going to use reaction. Because if you engage the enemy, you can't then like jump in front of somebody when another enemy comes up on one of your friends. Okay, so but I think we were basically able to read this character sheet. Let's look at least one more. So much higher defense, much lower health compared to Crunk. So you have invocation and protection as magical traditions. You make luck rolls with 1 boon. Why do you get that? Is that because of being a priest? You have a holy symbol. The symbol has 1 charge. You can expend a charge to do extra damage. You can expend a charge to enable yourself or one ally to heal. You can use an action. So this is use an action. This is as a bonus when you hit. Use an action and expend 1 charge to present your holy symbol at 1 creature that can see you. Make a will roll against that target's will. You roll with 1 boon if you know the target is a demon, fairy, fiend, spirit, or undead. On a success, the target becomes held. Luck ends. Okay, you can mace with a strength +1 against the target defense. Deals 1d6 damage. So much less hefty hit than the Great Hammer here. Battle Blessing. You can use a reaction, or you can use an action or a reaction when you attack to grant yourself and each ally within 5 yards 1 boon on rolls to attack for 1 minute. Until this effect ends, the targets are also immune to the Frightened affliction. Once you use this talent, you lose access to it for 1 minute. But Battle Blessing is still quite nice here. I'm guessing that's from Priest. Mystic Ward. You can use an action to place a Mystic Ward on a creature, then imposes 1 Bane on rolls to attack. If a creature takes damage, it reduces the damage taken by 1d6, and the effect ends early. So you can take some damage off, but then they're no longer harder to hit. Prayer. You can use a reaction when you or a creature within 5 yards make an attribute roll to magically grant 1 boon to that roll. So that's like a bonus assist at range. Aim is a dragonette. People of miniature dragons. You were considered a wise philosopher. Became a mage. So 13 defense, 12 health. The lowest health we've seen so far. Understandable, since this is a mage-type character based on kind of fantasy adventure game traditions. You are size 1/2. Speed 5, but you can fly. You have a ring that has 2 charges. You lose the ability to fly when you're injured. Understandable. Your tail functions as an additional limb, so you can have 3 weapons if you did like weapon, weapon, weapon in the tail. Dagger is agility plus 0 against defense, deals 1 damage, 26 damage. Mage sense. You can expand your senses to perceive the presence or absence of magic within 5 yards for a minute. Harness lightning. You can throw a bolt of lightning at somebody. Oh no, you lightning yourself. You become energized. So while energized, you take no damage from lightning. You emit dim light. Any creature that deals damage to you with a weapon made of metal makes a luck roll, otherwise they take damage. You get baboon attacking against metal targets. Your attacks with natural weapons, unarmed strikes, and metal weapons deal extra damage. You can hurl lightning at somebody. Okay. Hide in plain sight. Use this action to become hidden. Use implement. So these are charges from the implement, which is a ring. So you can impose a bane against attacks. You can do a mage strike, launch a missile of magical energy. A magic missile? That is will against agility for 2d6 damage. Fire breath. Agility. The target makes an agility roll. But what's the DC when the target makes when you attack? You can use a reaction when you attack. So is this an extra thing? I'm gonna have to go back and get the how do they set the default TN for these types of rolls? And you have spells. You can cast each of these spells once. Danger Sense, Flee the Scene, Fort Lightning, Gusting Wind. All right, and there's 2 more characters. We have a Clockwork Person. Engage the enemy. They have this also, so that tells me that this is a fighter ability. Critical Success. You can roll extra damage twice and use the higher result. Don't know for sure what that one's come from. Grind the Gears, I'm guessing, and Machine Body come from Clockwork, but maybe the critical success thing is from being a guard. Whisper is an Elf Drifter Rogue, 2-weapon attack for more damage. You have a longbow. Trickery, when you would make an attribute roll, you can use this talent to roll with one boon. Once you use this talent, you lose all access to it until the start of your next turn. So once per turn, you get a boon because of trickery. And when you dodge, increase the number of boons granted to your agility roll by 1, or the number of boons imposed on you, enemy, right? Advantageous strike. When you get a success on a roll to attack and roll at least 1 boon, you can use this talent to deal an extra 1d6 damage. This is not unlike sneak attack. Okay, we have the kind of range of 9 to 13 here. It looks like these characters have 1 13, 1 9, a 10, and an 11. So let's go back to this target number. Normally the target number is 10. If you roll against a creature, target number is the score of the attribute you are rolling against. Okay, so in these questions wherein it's an agility roll, it would be the agility of the attacker. So when aim does the fire breath, it would be an agility against 10 because of aim's agility, is the sense that I get here. Okay. So we can scan down to the quest, but I don't know that that's necessarily more... I don't know that I necessarily need to look at that for this stream, because I think that will take a lot of reading. And my head is already, I'm already doing this a lot because I'm doing this because of how I'm sitting. And because this is in the way of the place where I'm reading things. So, and I can't really do that because of how the overlay is set. So I think I might stop here. I don't know how I feel exactly. I think I would still want to play a session of this to get a bit better of a feel of how much I like it. It seems still quite similar to the kind of overall vibe of a D&D 5e. It seems maybe less complicated compared to a Pathfinder 2nd edition. It has some tweaks that I think are nice. It still has some things that I dislike about other kind of D20 fantasy games. A number of people have said that they really like Shadow of the Demon Lord. I wonder how much of that is I like Shadow of the Demon Lord compared to X other fantasy adventure game, right? A D20 fantasy adventure game, maybe. I don't think that I dislike much in what this is doing, but I think that for my own personal taste, I am leaning more toward trying to find a fantasy adventure game that is more fiction driven, but still has some interesting, fun things to do in combat. This might be a pretty decent fit for that game, but I'm not totally sold on it just yet. A few weeks back, maybe a couple months back, we looked at Heroes by Hearthlight, I think was the name of the game. That was a Forged in the Dark heroic fantasy game. And that one kind of followed through on a lot of traditional Forged in the Dark design elements. I really like that design style. In a world where I could play new games all the time and it was easy to make that happen, I would definitely want to try out Shadow of the Weird Wizard, either when the game comes out or, sometime between now and then with somebody who has this and is willing to either run this quest or some other thing. Let's look at the Kickstarter real quick. What are the pledge levels? So for $14 USD, I can get the PDF. I only want the PDF of the player's book. Okay, that's very reasonable for what I'm guessing is probably like a 300-ish page book. Novice Wizard is PDF Secrets of the Weird Wizard, which I'm guessing is like the DM book. Novice Quest 1, Stretch Goals, Digital Sage Screen. Expert Wizard, digital copies, print copies of both Shadow of the Weird Wizard and Secrets of the Weird Wizard, and then all of the digital things. And then we go on to a very big, beefy version. So let's go back to campaign, and let's scroll down so that we make sure we know what these two books are meant to be. We have this character sheet that I'm not super fond of, I admit. This character sheet here. There's just a lot of lines, and I don't know that I like having the sheet be this busy. I'm guessing the final sheet might have full lines here, because that's just my guess. I don't know what this part means. Coin, gear, damage, tradition, armor, all this, that's fine. But this is just a bit busy for me. Right, strength, agility, will, intellect, level, defense, tokens, and health. Strength and agility. I don't think strength and agility inform health, but maybe they do, right? Do intellect and I'm not totally sure what the star is about. Anyway, so back here, the books. Shadow of the Weird Wizard, the core rulebook, right? Secrets of the Weird Wizard, the rulebook for the Sage. Okay, as I expected. I have bought a lot of games. I think $14 for the PDF of the main book is it seems like it's going to be a pretty good deal. A lot of people speak highly of Shadow of the Demon Lord. I got Shadow of the Demon Lord in a bundle, as I think I mentioned earlier. But I think if you are 325 hardcover for Secrets, 350 page for Shadow, based on this walkthrough, if a lot of what 5e does works for you, but you want a little bit more flexibility in some of the stuff about combat, like, oh, more reactions, I really like that part, or some of maybe how the streamlining of the way the attacks against attributes work. I think that could be worth taking a look at. I don't think I'm going to pledge right now, at least as much because I wouldn't want to dox myself in terms of like putting my credit card number up on a stream. But I did not come away from this quick play being like, hell yeah, let's go. That may be because I was like unsure about some clarity things. It may be that kind of martial artist hat coming back on and being like, well, that's not how this, being grumpy about that, where they're making abstractions that are not fun to me. And that's fine, because people are going to keep on making new fantasy adventure games, right? MCDM is making a game that seems like it'll be really tactically oriented, but they're trying to promise heroic and cinematic as well. Darrington Press is making Daggerheart. We've got a lot of information about the Gen Con build that they were playtesting, but that game isn't coming out until next year, so who knows where it's going to go. So now I have a better sense of what system is kind of being carried forward to Weird Wizard. I think I'm going to have to go back to the Kickstarter campaign and get a bit more of a sense of the flavor to see how much has the Grimdark been backed off, right? Is this in the same setting as Shadow of the Demon Lord, but with a more optimistic take on it? Or a less terrifying section of the world? Or is this a whole different thing that uses the system and is presenting a little bit more traditional heroic fantasy vibe, where it's what they described is more like desperate heroism against overwhelming odds, which is not necessarily automatically dark fantasy. A lot of that will come down to framing. But I've been thinking a lot about tone and framing in RPGs because of working on my own stuff. So let's go back here to the top. That is Shadow of the Weird Wizard on Kickstarter for another 17 hours. By the time this video gets to YouTube, this campaign will be over, but I bet you'll probably have some options for late pledges via like backer kit or something like that, because Schwalb Entertainment isn't like a known company. They're actively putting out those Demon Lord books. So there's going to be chances to pick this up even if you don't get in on the Kickstarter. So that is going to be that. I am GMing Valorword, the 3x WebFest official selection, multiple award nominated actual play series. We're going to have a session this Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time over at twitch.tv/ArvinElron. This will be the conclusion of the Hibiscus Tournament arc, which is fun that it's turned into this multiple session arc because I like tournament arcs and it's a chance to do really fun, interesting, dynamic fight scenes. So you can check that on Friday. I don't know what I'm going to be streaming on Friday. It might be game prep. It might be something else. I might decide to not stream in order to be able to save my voice, because I noticed that my voice is a little tired now, which I think means that I am going to go ahead and call this a stream. I'm going to find my ending thing and say thank you to The Kids Are Asleep and to Aruden LX4 and to everybody else who has popped in and out and or been lurking. And thanks to folks who are watching this later on Twitch or YouTube. If you are finding this because of looking at Shadow of the Weird Wizard, I am a science fiction and fantasy author and game designer. I also co-host Speculate, which is a actual play show focused on storytelling across a variety of disciplines, because my co-hosts and I are all professional authors. So you can find more information about that at speculatesf.com or speculatesf on Twitter. I am at Mike R. Underwood on Twitter, as well as at mikeRunderwood.bsky.social over on Blue Sky, that other app. So that's all of that. I hope you all have a lovely day, and I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.